Can you explain to me the fundamental concept of zero ticket IT?
The concept of zero ticket IT is that instead of reacting to the ticket and trying to solve the ticket, you go directly to the source of the issue. And so in most IT organizations, 70% of those tickets, they come from employees.
I still find the concept of zero ticket very ambitious.
Yeah, it is ambitious. And so what's interesting there is, like I said, we can get to 60, 70% with today's technology, just applying 3 different tools. And I believe that the next evolution is a better technician experience to solve those problems. And that's how you get to 90%. And once you hit 90%, the remaining 10%, you don't need a complex ticketing solution.
Realistically, how many business stakeholders do you think would want to invest in that?
In today's world in IT, your ITSM solution is probably one of your biggest expenses. And if you can eliminate the need to pay for that ticketing system or use a much lighter weight solution to it, the solution pays for itself, right? You don't have to use these qualitative employee productivity metrics to justify the investment in what I'm talking about.
Welcome to the Tech Transform podcast, where we have a weekly conversation with people impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Shubhangi Dua, a tech journalist and editor at EM360Tech. This episode, I am speaking with Sean Heuer, CEO of Resolve Systems, about the industrial vision of zero-ticket IT and how leveraging agentic AI and intelligent automation can change IT operations for the better. From talking about the limitations of traditional ticketing systems to delivering frictionless employee experiences and also driving competitive advantage, this episode aims to cover it all. Hi, Sean. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
Me too. I'm so excited to have you on. But before we get into the topic altogether, I would like to ask you, what's the aim that you're trying to get out there? What is the agenda for this podcast?
For me, in kind of taking on this opportunity, it's really about getting the message out there. I think a lot of people, they don't understand really what's possible today with AI and automation. They don't understand the real impact that it can have today. Like, not in some beautiful future fantastical vision, but like what's possible with the technologies we have at our disposal right now, and how close you can truly get today to a zero ticket IT environment. And so, that's kind of what I want to talk about, and hopefully with your help, get some of that message out there.
Yes. Can you explain to me the fundamental concept of zero ticket IT?
Yeah, so the core of the idea is that today, in today's world in IT, kind of the center of gravity, the center of focus for most IT organizations is the ticket. It is this core kind of coordinating tool that is used in most IT environments. And the main reason why it exists is because of reactive work, right? So work that is coming in that's not planned, because planned projects, they can follow any number of project management tools or systems. But the work that comes in from, say, employee request or from machines alerting, those are unplanned, and you can't really predict exactly when those are going to come in or what the questions are going to be. And so the concept of zero ticket IT is that instead of reacting to the ticket and trying to solve the ticket, you go directly to the source of the issue. And so in most IT organizations, 70% of those tickets, they come from employee requests, right? And those requests, they span from things like, I'm locked out of my machine, or I forgot my password, to the printer's not working, to my VPN is not connecting, or I'm having some connectivity issues. And then on the machine side, we monitor everything today, like with an attempt to be proactive about solving problems in our infrastructure, our networking, our services and applications. We monitor that entire stack, right? It's from like IoT devices to network switches. And all of those alerts, they typically get funneled into an incident management system, which is just another ticket, right? And so what our goal is with zero ticket IT is we get interfaces at the source of each of those. So like for our employees, for our humans, we want to put agentic AI, right? The advances in AI's ability to have a conversation with an employee, understand their problem, and then leverage the access it has to your knowledge base, to your documentation, to your service catalog to solve that problem right at its source, right? There's no reason for a human to intervene if you locked your account, right? If you need to reset your password, there's no reason for a human to have to handle that. It should happen instantaneously as soon as you go and chat into that interface. Hey, I forgot my password for Salesforce. Can you reset my password? It'll say, yes, I can help you with that. Here's a link to resetting your password. And the problem is solved, right? No downtime. On the machine side, we use tools that are aggregators. They aggregate all of those alerts into a single unified funnel. And these solutions are typically called AI ops solutions because what they do is they actually apply AI intelligence to all of that aggregated alert data to identify what is the exact problem. So like, for example, in a tech stack, if your hardware goes down, every layer above it is going to alert as well, right? And so like in operations people, they call this like alert storms where you have cascading failures, right? So if everything is alerting, how do you know which one is the actual culprit, right? Because typically it's one thing that happened that caused this cascading impact, right? And then those are the most expensive things to really triage and figure out because you're talking about thousands or hundreds of thousands of alerts and alarms that are coming out. And so these aggregation solutions are able to take that and identify the correlations and relationships between them and say, look, the real problem here is this network switch. The switch, went down or it's out of date with some patch and it caused this cascading failure. So go fix that network switch. All right. And so the same way that we're solving problems at the source with employees by giving them a direct interface to solve their problem through self-service, we're doing the same thing with machines, where instead of getting 1,000 incidents you have to manage, you get one incident, right? And so what we've seen is you can reduce the number of tickets by 30% on both of those, right? So just by putting an interface in front of machines, in front of humans and allowing self-service, you get a 30% reduction in total ticket volume, minimum. Now, the next layer to that is that it needs to be connected to an automation and orchestration hub, right? A solution that can connect to anything in your ecosystem, and it can actually follow very structured processes to solve more complex issues, typically having to touch multiple systems, right? And so like we've been doing that for a long time. And so the remaining 70% of tickets that come through, they come directly into that automation platform, and it poses the question, can you solve this problem? I've got a memory issue or a CPU issue. Can you solve that problem? I need a software downloaded. I need access to Miro. Can you provision me Miro? Right? And so then our solution goes and solves the next 30% of those challenges with these very kind of what we call like foundational workflows. Because we know from our experience, the categories of human request, the employee request, password reset is about 40% of the request. Account and access controls is like another 20%. And then the software provisioning, the example I gave, that's another like 15%. So just by solving those three problems for employees, we're talking about 70% of total employee ticket volume, right? And those aren't like, again, I'm not selling a fantasy. Those are things we can do today. And it's the same thing on machine side. 50% of your issues on the machine side are infrastructure and networking alerting and alarming because of some reason or another. Usually it's CPU or memory issues or something like that, right? And so very solvable problems. Okay, so now we applied those two layers. We got to the source and then we tied it into an automation platform. Now we've reduced your total ticket volume by 60, potentially 70%. Like we have customers that have hit 80% just by applying those two. So now to get to true zero ticket, now you've got to change the way your technician works, right? So technicians have historically worked tickets, L1's gathering information to feed to L2 and L3, right? And it's this progressive escalation But the way that we want them to work in the future is you leverage a co-pilot. And so if you leverage that co-pilot to actually solve the ticket, the co-pilot is keeping track of every step you took, right? And so by keeping track of every step you took, and like I'll tell you, in automation, the biggest challenge you have, process design, right? Getting people to agree what is like the most beautiful, perfect process to solve any given challenge. You eliminate that with this co-pilot because the co-pilot is just observing and watching you solve the same problem over and over again. And so it's able to pattern match and say, look, the basic steps to solve this problem we've captured and this is them. Do you want to create an automation that just follows those steps for you? Right. And you say yes.
With that, though, aren't you worried about like cybersecurity issues? Like, because AI kind of has a hold of all your data and then you're training it on pretty much your entire system. And these are some very, very foundational issues that you're tackling. So it just kind of worries me whether there's a cyber attack or not, or any malicious attack or not. Or there is a lot of vulnerability here involved. How do you tackle that?
Yeah, you know what's interesting is when machines do the work, there is much lower human error, right? And it's fully auditable. So like everything a machine does can be tracked, audited, and potentially rolled back if you need to.
So there's
Right.
also machine error with AI, which is very high still.
Yeah, well, what's interesting about that is that the public facing LLMs that you're using, they're meant to answer like highly general questions. Like they're meant and built to answer pretty much anything. The LLMs that we use in corporate environments have much more rigorous controls. They have guidelines, they have guardrails, right? So they're trained to only answer questions that they know the answer to, that they can actually point to the source that they were able to derive their answer from. And so like, I had a conversation right before this call with a customer that had that very concern, right? And so a lot of this is, I mean, it's just like automation is, humans are inherently suspicious of things they don't understand, right? And AI and the way LLMs actually work and answer questions is kind of a black box to most people. And so a big part of this is kind of twofold. Is like you've got to show them how the LLM actually derives answers and how it learns from the data you provide it. But then the other side is using it. You've got to use it and you've got to see, and you can really tightly scope that, right? The customer I was just talking to, they want to start with 50 employees. Then they want the 50 employees to interact with that LLM, see what responses it gives them, make sure it's not hallucinating and telling them that they have, 1,000 days of PTO left when they really have 5. And so like, I think those are the two paths. And without actually using it and understanding it, I think there is this fear, uncertainty, and doubt around it. And so there's nothing like getting your hands on it to see what it's actually capable of today.
I mean, it's not going away. Automation, AI, it's here to stay. So might as well leverage it. But it's more about how you can protect your system that matters most. And this leads me to my next question, actually. What are some of the KPIs that IT organizations should start focusing on to measure their progress towards a zero ticket model? I also have to say that I still find the concept of zero ticket very ambitious.
Yeah, it is ambitious. And so what's interesting there is, like I said, we can get to 60, 70% with today's technology, just applying 3 different tools. And I believe that the next evolution is a better technician experience to solve those problems. And that's how you get to 90%. And once you hit 90%, the remaining 10%, you don't need a complex ticketing solution. You need a queue. You need a simple backlog. Here's the 10 things I need to solve, and you just check them off. You don't need all this routing and all these other bells and whistles. And so organizations, we've already seen, like we have a telco customer that's gotten to 80% reduction of incidents in their network and infrastructure. We have a retail company that has gotten to 75% reduction. Auto remediation, I guess, is the correct term, of all employee requests, right? And so like we were already seeing it in today's world with the technology we have. So to shift into metrics, I think the biggest shift that IT organization needs to make is kind of one of mindset. And IT organizations, specifically in like this help desk area, have been really focused on things like agent utilization, total ticket volume, first touch, resolutions, right? It's all about this ticket. It's all about like, how did you escalate it, percentage escalated. But IT's job isn't to work tickets. IT's job is to make the business productive, to keep it productive, right? And so employees being your most valuable asset in a company, if they can't access the system they need to do their job, you'll lose 30 minutes, 40 minutes of productivity. And so like, I'll give you an example. So like in most organizations, your ITSM solution, your ticketing solution represents 10%, right, of your total budget spend. It is probably your number one cost, right? And so if you can eliminate that, you save money. On the employee side, there was a study done by Forrester. It was like for every 1,000 employees you have, you lose $1.5 to $3 million of productivity through IT related issues and downtime. So what you got to do is you got to shift your focus to employee productivity. Is like, how do you measure employee engagement, employee productivity? How do you measure how much time they spend without access to the systems that they need to do their job? Right. And so you're starting to talk about things like deflection rate, percent of incidents auto resolved, your mean time to prevent incidents, your self-service rate, your digital employee experience score, right? And that's the most interesting one for me is like, what is your employee actually experiencing? And not are they satisfied with how well you solved their ticket? It's in a given week or month or year, how much time did they spend not productive because of a technology issue, because of an IT issue? And I promise you, if you can lower that number, right, it creates all kinds of amazing trickle down effects for your company.
But realistically, how many business stakeholders do you think would want to invest in that? Invest in something that's for the greater good of their employees? I mean, I know it boosts productivity, but the cost of it.
Like I said before, you're today in today's world in IT, your ITSM solution is probably one of your biggest expenses. And if you can eliminate the need to pay for that ticketing system or use a much lighter weight solution to it, the solution pays for itself, right? You don't have to use these qualitative employee productivity metrics to justify the investment in what I'm talking about, right? You will not just get a better solution for the same price, you'll get a better solution for significantly cheaper. We're talking like 10, maybe 20% of the cost of an ITSM solution today. Right. And so like the business case is pretty simple to make. The other side of it, the employee productivity side of things, like if you look at a lot of companies today, and I know there's a lot of talk about layoffs and AI replacing people, but the reality of a business is still that your employees you have in your business, they're mission critical, right? Is you can't run your business without them. And typically there's a core set of employees that are driving, 80% of value in that business. And so keeping them productive, engaged, like the big companies out there are talking about these talent wars, and they're real, especially with AI coming. There are very real talent wars going on. And the companies that are able to get and also retain top talent are the ones that are going to win, right? Because technology, as we see, it goes so incredibly fast. There are no moats anymore, especially in the technology space. The only competitive advantage that you can really keep is you keep the top talent and you are more productive and you move faster than any of your competitors. And that's what Zero Ticket does for you, is it keeps your employees engaged and productive.
Absolutely. And what are some of these common hurdles that, in your experience, organizations have encountered and continue to encounter, even with AI coming into the picture, especially agentic AI coming into the picture, futuristically as well? Like, I know it's here to stay, but tell me some of the problems that, despite your ambitions, some of the problems that they will continue to persist.
You highlighted one around lack of trust of AI. I've been with Resolve now for 3.5 years. And, so I've been with them long enough to where AI wasn't like the center of gravity. But we face the exact same challenges with automation is, do you trust a machine to go and make configuration changes to your infrastructure and networking? And, there's real hurdles to getting network engineers to trust a machine to do that type of activity. So that's nothing new to us of getting to a point where you trust a machine to take an action a human typically does. And like I said, the way you overcome that is twofold. If you're going to take on an agentic AI and automation strategy, you have to focus on education for one. You've got to educate your employees on how to use it properly. You've got to educate them on the safety measures that are put in place, the guardrails, like I mentioned, the auditability of it, right? The benefits of using this over something that's very error prone when humans do it, right? And so like a big part of it is actual education. The other part of it is you've got to see it being used and you've got to look at it on a consistent basis, right? So the LLM solution that we leverage at Resolve, it gives you the ability to see every question that is asked of it and what answer was provided. And so being able to continuously look at and evaluate how well it's answering certain questions, how well it's solving certain problems, and incrementally improve it over time, it gives you a feeling of security and control that humans really need over these machines. And so I think it's a combination of those two things: education, but being able to like audit and incrementally improve it over time, I think are two critical pieces to adoption of it.
Definitely. I think awareness anywhere is key. And I know a lot of companies have started training their employees now, of course, on their own AI systems and chatbots, but also on ChatGPT and how to best leverage it. And like, I remember one of my friends, she works at a marketing company, and she was telling me one of the tips, the best tips I've received during my ChatGPT training was that if you tell it, like, and this is the free version, if you tell it that you will be fined if you do not, like, you give the instruction and then you say, if you don't tell me in exactly what I've instructed you to say, you will be fined. So please be accurate. And
Be
then,
precise. Yeah.
yeah. So then it's like on point. Then it gives you a more accurate answer. But if you don't say that you're not going to be, if you don't say fined, then it definitely fumbles.
Well, and it's an interesting there is this whole we'll say movement that has come up that is like God, what do they call it? It's like prompt engineering, I think is what they call it, right? Is educating people on how to interact, because humans, for the last 15, 20 years, how long's Google been around? Something like that, have been trained to use Google. They've been trained to use search engines. And how you use a search engine is you speak machine, right? That's how you use a search engine. But how you use an LLM is it's like talking to a human. Like I equate it to, like, my kids are a little older now, but like a 3 to 5 year old. Like, you got to be real specific in what you want and clarify these things. Like you said, of like, look, my job's on the line if you get this answer wrong. So please be precise. Show me sources, show me your logic, and it'll show you your logic, how it came to the conclusion, right? It's an amazing tool when used properly.
Absolutely. Just the environmental costs concern me a little bit, but
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, that's interesting too. Like, so I worked for this company. One of my first startups I worked for is a company called Rally Software. They were one of the first SaaS providers out there. And the reason they started their company was to prove out SaaS as a model. And they weren't thinking monetization, right? That's what everybody thinks today, is subscription-based monetization model. What they were thinking is, if I can create a highly efficient, centralized data center that runs everything instead of inefficient nodes everywhere, I can reduce my footprint, my impact on the environment and on society as a whole. And you see, I think, NVIDIA and like some of these companies they're really, really focusing on making running AI more efficient. right? Use less energy, have less of a data center footprint, make the chips more efficient. And I think we'll see incredible advances in that space in the coming years, hopefully in an effort to, for them, it's probably, half about making it more efficient so they make more money. But, I do think people care more than ever about their impact on the global environment and our climate.
Absolutely. Google has actually, I think it was last year when they said that they're going to build nuclear backed data centers. So just to make it more renewable because they have a high electric consumption rate.
Well, I worked for AWS before coming to Resolve, and they had a mission to moving to like solar and wind power to run their data centers. I can't remember. It was like 2030 or something like that. That was the year where it would be 100% run by it. But, 100% agree. Like these cloud providers, they have such an incredible influence and also impact on the global environment, global economy. And, it's kind of up to them to make good decisions about how they actually serve us.
Coming back to the IT tickets, zero IT ticket scenario, what new skills and expertise will be the most critical for IT teams to cultivate, especially for their business environment to be more successful? I know we've touched upon this a little bit, definitely, but what is some of the best advice that you like to deliver to businesses?
Yeah, I think I'd probably highlight two pretty specific things. I think we talked about it a little bit with like prompt engineering, but I think that the new IT technician role is managing AI and automation, right? And so like you have to understand how these things function and work and how to actually evolve them properly over time, because I believe that's going to become the core of the help desk technician's job is in the future, is like you're staying on top of what are all the requests that are coming in? Are they being answered properly? How can we write a knowledge article or a script to allow the AI to handle that request in a faster, more efficient manner, or fill a gap, fill a hole, right? And I think that's how it's going to shift, right? Instead of being kind of reactive and solving tickets, their job is going to become more proactive. And what are the top requests that we should write an automation for or a knowledge article to train our system on? The other side of it is I think they need to get much better at understanding employees' experience, right? I think they need to get better at, and the reason I focus so much on employee experience, isn't just because I run a company and like I want to keep my employees. It's because the efforts we have used in the past to eliminate tickets, like a help desk portal, employees hate. They freaking hate them. Like, because they have to do all the work themselves. They go to these portals and they do a search and you're like, here's 10 articles that we wrote. Do these 10 articles solve your problem? And you read 3 of them and you're like, no, they did not solve my problem, right? It's the most frustrating thing ever, right? You spend 20 minutes trying to solve your own problem only to find out the knowledge article doesn't directly address the issue you have, right? And so but we've ignored that and obfuscated that because those portals have deflected a certain number of tickets. But how many employees gave up? How many of them never got the answer they were looking for, right? How many of them are upset and frustrated, right? And that's what we need to shift toward, because the goal, again, of IT is employee productivity and employee engagement. And so if we're tracking that, if we're measuring that, if we're truly thinking in terms of employee productivity, employee engagement, it's going to change the systems we build, the solutions that we provide. I think those are the two things. Like, if you're a technician today and running a help desk, I think those are the things you need to start thinking about and shifting your focus towards.
Well, this is probably unrelated to the topic, but as you were explaining the solution to me, I was just thinking like, no wonder Gen Zs get promoted much faster because we leverage AI so much more easily, because we're like, why do we need to ask this person anything? We can just firstly go there and just get our answers and then just verify, yeah, this is what we need to do. And then we just do it. And we definitely we have boosted productivity. So I hope I get promoted faster.
Yeah. No, 100%. And the world's evolving. Like, my kids grew up where they could touch every screen. right? And so if they can't touch a screen and have that level of interaction, they get frustrated. The bar for technology's ability to solve your problem raises with every generation, but so does their fluency, like you said, like your ability to leverage that technology to do things. And so, I think there's way too many, curmudgeony people out there that like bash previous generations. But I was a previous generation at one point, and I think all of them, every generation has something to offer. And I do think people that are growing up in the age of AI are going to do amazing things with that technology.
Probably. I just hope that they don't sway away from the ethics of it all. So I think while it's important to train everybody on AI systems, I think it's also very important to have the ethical training with that.
Agreed. I mean, and we've seen it with evolution of every technology. Their technology can be used for good and it can be used for evil. There's a whole industry of security that is focused on preventing people from using technology for evil. Right. I mean, and you can go back to every single evolution of technology, like back into manufacturing and like using plants and you can use these technologies to grind humans to a pulp, or you can use the technologies to enhance humans productivity. And governments are trying to regulate as fast as they can to incentivize and disincentivize the right behaviors, but ultimately it's up to the collective, it's up to the community to govern, because the technology is just moving too fast, right? It is up to each one of us to make sure that we're following some form of moral or ethical standard in our usage of these solutions.
So in like, I would say 10, 20 years time, in fact, I never ask anyone so futuristically, but I'd like to ask you this. How do you envision the future?
I think, there's a lot of people talking about what the world's going to look like 10 to 15 years from now. I think we're at a really interesting inflection point. In my lifetime, I've gotten to see, the age of the internet, which was just an incredible shift in the way humans get work done and the way humans react. It's brought people closer globally than ever before, which has really changed so many cultural dynamics. Like, it's just changed so much about our world. I think AI it's going to take it to another level. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I had this conversation with my son, who's 11, the other day in a car. And he's like, AI is evil. I hate what it's going to do. It's going to take people's jobs. And like, I'm going to be speaking to robots at McDonald's. And I'm like, maybe that's the case. Maybe things that can be done by a combination of robots and AI is going to fundamentally change the way our day-to-day interactions work. Maybe it changes our schooling system. Maybe we have more tailored curricula for a given student, right? My son's really good at math. My daughter is extremely good at like language arts and art. And so like, maybe we're going to see an evolution where AI and technology creates more specialized and educated humans. I don't know. The impacts are just so broad. I think the biggest and most interesting impact that my son highlighted, which kids are amazing at cutting through the BS. How's our economy going to work? If so much work is being done by AI and bots, how are we going to support employment? Because in today's world, in most countries, you doing a job or a service to make money is how you feed your family. It's how you keep a roof over your head. And so if AI takes 30% of all jobs globally in the next 10 years, how are we going to support those people that are out of a job? I think it's a really interesting question. I don't have an answer to, but I think that's the most interesting question.
That is the crux of it, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, all this advancement is because of that. How do you feed your family? So you come up with innovative ideas and you move forward. So competition will only get stronger. It's hard to avoid that anxiety, but which again leads me to my next question. If you had to summarize one key takeaway in 60 seconds from our conversation today for CIOs, what would it be? And particularly for like CIOs, IT decision makers.
I'd say start now. Stop waiting. Stop with the FUD. Stop with the experimenting. Right. So many CIOs are in this experimentation mode. Apply AI to a problem. Stop experimenting with what it could potentially do. There's solutions out there like Cursor and Replit that are solving it from a coding standpoint. From an IT standpoint, I've given you kind of a prescriptive playbook to go and solve it today. So get out there, assess these technologies, start leveraging them in your environment and get the benefits of it. Because this is real. This isn't a future fantasy world. This is something you could do today, right now.
Yeah. We're living in it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sean, for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on. Also, thank you to everyone out there listening. We hope you took a lot away from today's episode. For further information on what we've talked about today, please head on over to resolve.io. We'll be back with another episode in our podcast series. Until then, please make sure you follow and subscribe to this podcast on all major platforms and follow the conversation on our socials at EM360Tech on X and LinkedIn. And for more great daily content, head on over to em360tech.com.